All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday, March 27th edition of the HamSCIence Zoom call. And when I said that, I just remembered today is my sister's birthday, so I need to give her a phone call after dinner. March 27th. My big sister, who's about this tall on me. Anywho, so one of the things I like to do today is to spend a little time looking at some rules I kind of sketched up, just pulling things from different places. You all may have other ideas or want to add or change or maybe take some things out, which is fine. Bruce here has done a little bit of looking at the data, and I pulled some stuff down from PSK Reporter when Bruce and Rich were making some QSOs back on Saturday morning, so we can take a quick peek at that too. So no HamSCIence Zoom call without any data, right? Yeah, it all kind of makes sense. So is there anything else anybody wants to add to the agenda we'll bring up yet today? Otherwise, we'll get into the meteor scatter stuff. Okay, hide the chat. All right. Well, I will share my screen and see if I can bring up the rules document that. Close that. Tab over to that. Okay, close this thing. That window out of the way. Hide video panel. There we go. All right. So again, I'm not coming at this with a great amount of knowledge of meteor scatter and operating techniques and whatnot. So I definitely need some help. I think the easiest thing seemed to be picking the dates and times, since the Perseids and the Geminids are the two showers that seem to have the most meteoroids per hour. And it wasn't easy to find these two dates, the 11th and 12th, where that's supposed to peak, and then the Geminids on the 12th and the 13th. What I did from a ham radio contest point of view, just to kind of put some definition to it, I just said, we'll pick these 2 days and we'll make it a 48-hour event. There's really no need to limit it to a real narrow time frame, I don't imagine. And that seems, from what you guys have all told me, is that most of the meteor shower activity is in the early morning. So that would allow folks in many different time zones to get on in early mornings. So that's where I came up with the idea for a 48-hour event in August and another one in December. So does that seem reasonable to the group?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good. Anytime we ask people to do things, I kind of like to have an objective there so they know what they're getting involved with and why they're doing it. So of course you want to generate research-worthy data, primarily from 10 meters, because that's what we're trying to study, but with 6-meter data also generated for comparison purposes. I think we've talked, it's good to have 2 bands to compare and contrast. Some people may only have equipment for 6 meters because that's what they've been operating meteor scatter for years. We don't want to exclude them, of course. So that's why I thought we'd allow 6 and 10 meters. And then pretty much I've got our, I'll do that. We got our science questions here about the geographical extent of propagation enhancements, typical duration, correlations between enhancement and meteorite size, and just kind of an open-ended thing. What other factors may influence the strength of meteor scatter reflections? And I pulled these pretty much word for word off of Mackenzie's poster from the HamSCI workshop a couple weeks ago. So hopefully that explains to people why we're doing what we're doing.
I have a comment, Gary.
Sure.
And by the way, I'm gonna mark your charts up in in PDF and send you a bunch of comments on them. But
if you want the Word document version, if that's easier, I can send that to you too.
No, I've got a full version of I can go ahead and make comments.
Oh, okay.
I think your objectives like 2A are great. I think there should be like a 2B, and that should be the target community. Who is the target community for the activity? And I came up with three different parts of the target community. One are the seasoned users, people that will actually make a lot of the contacts, kind of know what to do and just need to be told when to do it, you know. The second group are brand new to the meteor scatter, and they're getting interested because of all this activity we've been talking about. We're telling them how interesting it is and how exciting and all that. And then the third group are the researchers. So I assume there's a group of people out there who are kind of watching over the HamSCI community, like, you know, folks you had at the conference last week. They aren't hams, but they're very interested in the data for a variety of reasons. So there may be another one too, but those were the three that kind of stood out to me.
That's great.
That makes a lot of sense. In fact, Ed had kind of mentioned the rookies thing to me earlier today. So you guys are thinking along the same line.
Yeah, new people that want to play, you know, that type of thing. So
So I'd like to suggest something, Bruce.
Yeah, go ahead.
To add, maybe not in this group, but maybe 4 or 5 in the objectives, and that is to say, to compare this with what amateur astronomers see in this year, because things differ year to year, a little bit.
I think that's an extremely important, really good point, because we're at the peak, maybe starting to slide down the peak of solar cycle 25. Things are going to look a lot different 2 years from now.
That's true, yeah.
And by the way, there is a planned session with Dr. Scott McIntosh, that's being hosted by the Front Range 6 Meter group sometime in the next week or two. The details are on that group's IO. I can find that date and let you know. Of course, those are always end up on YouTube as well, so you can view them. But Scott will be talking about the rest of cycle 25 and also what 26 is going to look like from his perspective. That'll be interesting to a lot of people. So just want to mention that.
Agreed. Is I put compare question mark. Is that the right? Did I get the right term in there? Or, you know, looking at astronomical versus amateur radio observation.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, that's fine. And you said you're going to mark the thing up, Bruce, but I just at least got a note about the target community, so I don't forget about that. That's a good point.
That's fine.
Sure. You want to know who you want. People want to read this and say, does this apply to me? And so we can answer that question.
Hi, Gary.
Right.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Sure, Kukai, go ahead.
Hi. Okay, so for researcher, normally we monitor the meteor shower by using a Doppler radar to measure the wind at about 100 kilometers. And that information is very important because it's too low for satellite observation and too high for balloon observation. But to do so, maybe we need a kind of like CW mode or, you know, those kind of thing, to a kind of continuous observation. I'm not sure what kind of mode that we're gonna use for our amateur radio operation. Is it a kind of like just monitor a ping back from meteor shower or anything else?
Well, the mode that at least amateurs are most familiar with using, from what I understand, is a digital mode. So the computer is generating essentially a series of tones and transmitting them in 72 millisecond bursts. And then another station is listening for reflections off of the meteor shower ionization. And those 72 millisecond bursts are repeated over and over again. I believe it's for a 15-second window, because of course each 72 millisecond transmission may not get reflected, so they're repeated multiple times with the hopes that one or more of them will come through, or if there's data that's jumbled up, it can be reassembled and then accurately received. So let me just change screens real quick just to show you, since we're talking about research. This is the kind of data. Might go away. This is
Okay,
the
so it's
type of,
digital mode MSK 144.
yes. And this is the data that we get back from our amateur radio databases. So there's the exact time, date, time, frequency, some indication of the signal to noise ratio, who the transmitting station was, their location, the receiver and their location, and it may or may not be useful what software the receiver station was using.
Mhm. So is this all information that we can get?
Oh yes, it's very easy to get. It's what many of us have used for years and years. It's called PSK reporter.
Okay, so it's the PSK reporter format, right?
Yes. Yeah, this the software that everyone will be using for transmitting and receiving has a little tick box, and if you turn it on as you receive these stations, it automatically sends all these reception reports from all these receivers to PSK reporter.
So so the data collected in this file, like, is it the only data that reflect back from meteor shower, or is it also from something else?
Well, the entire file, this is a 6-hour period on March 22nd, and the original file, when it was expanded, was well over a gigabyte. So I took all of the modes other than MSK 144 and discarded them,
I see.
because for our operating event, we'll focus, as of now, it seems like we're going to focus on MSK 144. So all the Morse code and other digital transmissions have been taken out of this particular file you're looking at. Though they're on PSK reporter, we can still get them. I just happen to, because it went from 1.5 gigabytes to like 600 or 800 kilobytes. It's tiny.
So
Recording
can
in
I say
progress.
can I say that the data that we receive from SK 144 mode are all meteor shower reflection?
That's a good question. And some of
Not-
the others
not
on the call.
necessarily. But the way you can tell, and some of the data I sent Gary earlier today had some contacts that I made that were definitely meteor shower because of the range involved. But they also had a couple of very close contacts because Rich K1HTV and I can hear each other. And so those show up as a distance in another data file that you can trace, that you could trace to this. Yeah, Gary's pulling it up now. They show up as the distance. So when you look at what Gary has there in the purple where I kind of highlighted it, you see some 12 miles, and the rest of them are all hundreds of miles. And so you could filter it and say anything under, pick a number like 100 miles is probably not. I mean, it could be MS, but definitely if it's, 600 or 700 miles, it's certainly MS, because there isn't any other mode that's likely to work. And that would be true until or unless there was some other E-skip activity going on or some F2 activity going on, and that we would have some other information to tell us that, and we could probably filter that out as well.
Okay, so the main filter is the distance, propagation distance, correct?
That's a very important filter. Absolutely.
Okay,
And
I
anything
see.
that's very short, you're going to know for sure that that's just a scattering effect and not meteor scatter.
Okay, and the altitude is like about the same as the sporadic E. So we can also make sure that the time, local time, is different from sporadic E, so that we can say that it's not, right?
in general, yes, because usually we're going to be doing this around midnight or 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning local time.
Mm-hmm.
The lyrids, by the way, are going to peak around midnight. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So some of us will be losing some sleep there, but yeah, generally speaking, that's true. And for 10 meters, 10 meters becomes active on F2 usually in the morning after 9 or 10 o'clock. And you will see the signature of that as like a control group. You'll see the signature of that in FT8, which is by far the most popular mode. And so that control group activity will be a good indication that, maybe the MS data is no good. Okay.
So we use that mode in addition to the MSK 144 mode also, right?
Yeah, we need to think about control groups. And I
I
was going to talk about that a little bit later as well in the
Okay.
next section. Yeah.
Okay. I'll try to follow. Thank you.
Yeah. No, that's fine. Good questions. Thanks, Gary.
Yeah, no problem. The good thing is, Kukai, is that many thousands of people use that FT8 digital mode that Bruce mentioned. So they don't have to know or care about our QSO party. They will be on the air or not whenever there's propagation available. So that is a good possibility for us. Okay. So I'll flip back to the rules then a little bit. So our interest is primarily in 10 meteor scatter propagation, while 6 is also popular. 10 meters really exhibits both characteristics of both HF and VHF. And 10 meters lends itself to novel research opportunities. So we got that right out there pretty quick. So we really want people to operate on 10 meters. And Bruce, do you suggest we suggest another frequency or use the standard on 10? Whoops, I'm not hearing you. I don't have my panel up.
Whoops, sorry. That was my bad. Okay.
No problem.
You know? Okay. I think what's important is to ask, especially the seasoned operator type people, to to use both 10 meters and 6 meters, because we would like to be able to see from the same types of locations and the same types of completed QSOs what the differences look like between 10 meters and 6 meters. Okay. And I also think that on 6 meters, we should be using a frequency that's different from 50.260. Now, in your chart, you talk about 265, and that would be, for example, 265 would be a frequency that we would use for the experiment, whereas 260 operators who are just doing normal meteor scatter, maybe not part of the experiment, that acts as kind of a control group, so we can see what the general propagation is like. And at the same time, we have our operators who are part of the experiment are on 265 and also 10 meters. And I recommend that we plan to alternate those operations every 10 or 20 minutes. So for the same time of day, roughly, we have both 10 meter and 6 meter experimental data.
Yeah, we're going to need some copy for
That
that.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So 10 minutes and even 20 minutes is not a very long, is probably not too long, given what's happening over hours and hours of time that the meteor scatter may be occurring. So if we go back
this
and
is
forth
Ed.
like that, we'll get data from both bands.
I have a question. Is 5 kilohertz enough spacing from the other channel in order to not interfere with it?
Yeah, generally speaking, that should not be a problem.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, because it's a 3 kilohertz bandwidth, and overpower or spattering is about the last thing you worry about at these power levels. So I think it's probably good. It's also close enough that operators will see what's going on, and they may become interested in using it themselves. In other words, if you're operating on 5260, your scope will probably also show you what's happening on 265, in case you weren't aware of that there was some activity there. We can test that out in the Lyrids as part of the experiment in the Lyrids to see if we're doing the right thing.
Okay. I can word this better, and you said you're going to send me some comments as well, but
I'm
okay, I
gonna
wanted
send
to
you
capture
comments.
that.
Yeah,
your
I'll
sta-
send you comments that clarify the idea of the control stations. I mean, the control operations and why that's important to what we're doing.
Yeah, that's also a
Okay.
good point too, because and I think it comes back to, I guess, maybe conversations from last week, is that we can sort of use the first one as a good experiment for how we improve it for the December piece. And also Nathaniel's comment is that, you know, if it's got legs, we can really carry it into 2016, you know, which obviously, you know, gets into looking at band performance as well for 10 meters. So there's a lot we can learn here.
Absolutely.
2026, I mean, next year, right?
Yeah, 20, yeah, did I say 26? Yeah,
Yeah,
2026.
yeah.
I'm 10 years behind, right?
Just made yourself 10 years younger, all of us
Yeah,
too.
I don't feel it, but I believe it. So, yeah.
All right, just some boilerplate stuff I copied over from previous events. Be sure to receive data node properly configured in the reporter grid and that sort of thing. Remind people that the PSK report is really critical to what we're doing. And I can't imagine there's mobile or rovers on meteor scatter, but if you don't put it in the rules, somebody will ask. So we don't want people moving around. So this I'm not as familiar with, but just my thoughts were, you know, that a valid QSO, when it comes to scoring and points and that sort of thing, that everybody's got to transmit their call sign and grid square. You've got to receive the other station's call sign and grid square. And you can only transmit a 4-digit, right? If I remember the WSJT suite. The payload will only accommodate a 4-digit grid square, I think, on transmit.
That's true, but the distance calculations that you put up a little while ago there, Gary, those are based on 6-digit. In PSK Reporter, those are based on 6 digits.
Okay.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah, and when
yeah.
people register for it, or maybe when they submit their data, maybe we can obtain a 6-digit grid square from them.
And that's the
Yes,
key
good
thing
point.
for them to do. When they put their data into WSJTX for reporting, they need to put in all 6 digits. That's the key thing that I think Gary captured there.
Yeah. Each character, okay. And now any two-way amateur radio contact is only considered complete if somebody acknowledges reception, or I know there's a couple of different ways, a couple different exchanges to set up, and I'd have to play with it a little bit, but I think it's either RR or RR73 is the final acknowledgement, I believe. So, because it is possible to just be kind of transmitting it to the ether, then you lose the other station and you never finish the contact, and you really can't count that as a completed contact. And just again, for the people who aren't familiar with the mode like me, there's really no time limit for making a contact. If it takes 15 seconds, 5 minutes, or 15 minutes, as long as you exchange the data, we're in no hurry. And then we'll figure out logging and things later, but obviously you've got to get both stations' data into the log, and typically found an ADA file, so that shouldn't be a problem for anybody. My thought was
this is
too
Ed
that people
again.
would just use WSJT and not try to configure N1MM or any other kind of complexities. Do you have a comment, Ed?
Yeah, the international, I've been investigating these things for a while. The International Meteor Organization has a model, and for the Lyrids, they're calling for the peak to this year on April 22nd to be any place between 1030, that's 1030Z, and 1800Z. So they actually model when the peaks are going to come in, and they said it'll be any place in that time period.
Well, we may be able to use that kind of thing in some of our pre-event promotion, right? Within the days leading up to the event to give
Yeah,
people an
yeah.
idea when the peak might be.
Yes, and they can also. I can also pull up the range, but the peak will be it will be that time period according to their models, and they remodel every year.
Okay, that's good to know. Let's see, blank page. Again, for the newer folks like me, in contest operating aids, you know, some amateur radio events you're not allowed to use any sort of software or aids or skimmers and receivers and that sort of thing, but obviously that's not the case here. So you guys had mentioned pingjockey.net earlier, and also the Virgo application. So if there's other things we can add, we could certainly add to it at any time.
Ping Jockey has been in significant use on this project already, because every morning the guys that gather there, some of them say, hey, I'm starting to CQ on 10 meters, and somebody else will say, okay, I'm going to try and do it too. And I mean, that's the meeting, that's the watering hole. And it's actually been used a lot. In fact, yesterday, somebody said, hey, why isn't there anybody out here on 10 meters today? Well, that's been good.
Fantastic.
I have
All right.
one other thing real quickly, and again, I'll put it in the notes for number 3 there. Stellarium is an application that you can put in Windows, but it also has a web page. Stellarium, exactly right, or Stellarium-web. And that gives a user a geometric sense of where the Lyrids are occurring. And it can also allows you to go back and forth in time, days, weeks, months, years. So you could look at December 25 right now if you want, and see exactly where you need to look to see the event, what time it's going to happen, etc.
So Bruce, one of the
good.
things I think that's interesting with programs like Stellarium is that all these things tell you the radiant, where the meteors look like they're coming from, but it's important not to stare right down the barrel of the gun, so to speak, because then you just see a dot. You want to look sideways to that, where you see the thing shooting past you and you get a big long trail.
Exactly, that's exactly right. You want
Yeah.
to look sort of at right angles to the radiant.
Yeah, look sideways.
There's a whole science to trying to figure out how to do that, but basically people are going to point either east or west if they can point at all. And if they're just using a wire, it's whatever they're going to get. So good, that's a good point.
So this part needs a lot of work. I've been thinking about this a little bit, but need to think about it some more. I mean, there's kind of 2 pieces to the data. Part of the stuff is the PSK reporter, which is great for research purposes, but it also is hams. We like to collect logs from people to see who made 10 contacts or 100 or Bruce, your PowerPoint here, where'd that come from? Where'd it go? I'll find it. With the distances between contacts, where did that information come from?
That came from, I need to look at it myself here. The distance between contacts, that actually came from PSK Reporter. If you're on PSK Reporter and you say, show me the MSK 144 between anybody and anybody else over the last 2 hours on 10 meters, it'll give you a list like is on the chart. if you're showing it. I can show it actually. You want me to show it?
Yeah, I'll stop.
Let me share. What am I sharing? Screen and that. Can you see that? Am I sharing?
Not yet.
Okay, I'm not hitting share correctly then. How about now? I never seem to get this right. Can you see the spreadsheet now? I mean the
Nope,
PowerPoint?
we're still seeing the rodent.
Let's see, why am I not sharing that?
Let me look at my host tools in case I need to do something. Allow participants to share screen. Okay, you should be good.
I hit share. I see a bunch of things I could be sharing. I see a picture. I see you.
There you go.
How about now?
There we go.
Do you have it now?
Yes.
You got the PowerPoint, right?
Right.
Oh, okay. Okay, so on the left-hand side on the top part, what that is you go into PSK Reporter while you're live and using it, which is to say not the large file that Gary pulled down later and showed you earlier tonight, but just using it in real time. You go in there and say, I want a 2-hour period to show me all the MSK 144 traffic on 10 meters from anybody to anybody else. And you'll get a text file that looks like that. And it has the distances in it. Now, and like I said, you see 12 miles there. That's because Rich and I, Kevin HTV and I are really 12 miles apart, and that could not have computed that unless it used all 6 digits of the grid square, because we're both in FM18. But how we get that distance computed in a file form like Gary had, I think is going to be a post-processing thing. We're going to have to know where all the operators that were involved, where their 6-digit, or we could just use their 4-digit and go by the rough. I prefer not to do that because FM18 and FM19, et cetera, those are pretty large areas. They're like, 120 miles on a side, something like that. And we would like to have much better resolution than that.
Yeah, I'm sure we could overcome that pretty easily.
I think in a post-processing sense, we have enough information to do it. And my sense was that, on the bottom here is a log entry. And the log entry represents a completed QSO. That's the only way it'll end up in your log, is if you complete it and hit, it'll either automatically log it or you hit the login button. And that information there, plus the information Gary showed you earlier, I think is all we need to be able to do our analysis. And my proposal is that during the test in April, that we get enough people involved and get the information out of PSK Reporter, and also ask for log information, like is on the bottom there on the left, and see if we can get enough information to make the analysis worthwhile. I think that should be the basis of deciding if the April plan is what we want. Okay.
Very good. Any questions for Bruce? This is pretty interesting.
Hi, yes, I have question. Okay, at the right side, at the snippet, could you explain me the time in 15-second column? Like you highlight with blue color, 2 line with blue color, and one is 0.0, one is 6.1. What does that mean?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I wanted to emphasize that the yellow gold there on the left, that is the actual SNR, and that SNR is from what the receiving station is seeing. Okay. And this ADIF log is my receiving station log, whether I receive or transmit, it's what I'm receiving. And the time, which will vary between 0 and 15 seconds, that's where in the 15-second interval the actual copy occurred. Remember, we're doing these 72-second little bursts over and over and over again. And so if you look down at the fifth one there, it says it was at 6.5. That was 6.5 into the 6.5 seconds into the 15-second interval that started at 10:51:06. Let's see. Oh, I'm sorry. It started at 10:51:00, and the time it actually occurred was 10:57:06 seconds. So that 6.5 correlates to the 6 in the time. I guess it's kind of redundant in that regard. It's a little more accurate. But I'm not sure we even care about that. But that is what that information means. Okay. The other signal to noise that's important is reported over here on the right, where, for example, in this QSO, K2DRH, who's been working with us a lot, and we owe him a lot. When he reported back to me, he said, I said, Bruce, KN4GGX, I copied you at a -4. Okay. So his report for me was -4. And I received him at a -1 when I received that report. So that's
So
the
that
SNR.
-4 and -1 both are SNR information, right?
Yes, it's all SNR in the way that WSJTX computes SNR
I see.
in their processing.
Yes.
And you'd have to ask Joe Taylor exactly how he does that. But we all use that to give us a sense. In FT8, you can process down to about a -24. But in MSK 144, you can only process down to a number like I'm going to pick a number out of a hat, like -14 or -15. There's a number that kind of represents the processing gain limit for MSK 144 because of the time and frequency that's going on here. FT8 is kind of a time domain integration thing. That's why you can get a really good processing gain on it. Here, the processing gain is not as good.
Well,
But
you up the data rate. That's the advantage to FT144 is you up the data rate. So you need more bandwidth. So you have to give up the sensitivity, but the signal peaks pretty well. So use the idea is to use the signal while it's there, since it's
yeah.
Hi, I'm sorry I'm late, but
No problem, Bob. Good to see you.
Yeah, I think you said that exactly right, Bob.
yeah, it's like I said, back in the olden days, we used to speed up the CW and record it on a tape recorder that was running real fast, and then run the tape back at normal speed and decode it. Hi, Mary Lou.
Hi, Bob. That's cool.
Okay, I think I'm done sharing. So
Okay,
ready? Go back. I don't know how to
Sure.
get that. I don't know how to unshare.
there should be a stop sharing button somewhere, but
There's
Up at
a
I might be
button
able to.
in the upper right. It says share, but I'm sharing. I don't want to share it with OneDrive. So
Oh,
now we're back to Gary. Okay, good. All right. He took care of it.
Where'd you get the picture of the white squirrel?
I'm glad you asked.
Is that in your yard? Oh my golly.
That was a visitor last year that was here for 2 or 3 weeks, and we got there are white squirrels, but that's actually an albino, which we know because we got a close enough picture that it actually has pink
Pink-
eyes.
I'm gonna say you can see the pink eyes.
Yeah, we actually have some little better pictures, but I kind of like that one.
Yeah, there was a family of them on the in the square where Oberlin College is located here in Northeast Ohio, and I haven't seen them for a couple of years, but they were quite the phenomenon for a while. All right, let me switch back to the rules real quick here. Go back to share. So as I was saying, I think we need to do some thinking about the post-event entry process. I mean, one of the obvious ways to do it is have people submit their ADIF logs to a website that would then convert them to Cabrillo format, and those can be scored. I mean, I did that for the solar eclipse QSO party for I don't know how many hundreds of people. So we know how to do that, but we'd have to get Bruce W87BNM involved to work on the website a little bit. But I do think it's important that at the conclusion of the event, we help people also potentially use, a Google form to enter their call sign, their 6-digit identifier, whatever contact information we might want, because you never know. You might see something in the data that you don't understand. You may want to contact somebody and ask them about their station. So we'll figure that out. But I think the key is the TSK reporter stuff. So, and again, this is far less important, but maybe to the participants, the scoring to figure out, who makes how many contacts in 6 meters versus 10 meters and that sort of thing. But after the event, put together a chart of who did what, and
Yeah.
Everybody likes to know who won, right? Bonus points, I think, are always fun. One of the things I think Mary Lou gave me the idea is maybe we should have bonus points for people who collaborate with their local astronomy clubs.
Yeah. And we've
Somehow,
got an
way,
example of
shape,
that
or
right
form.
now with Binghamton. So, yeah. Mhm.
Yep. It's a minor thing, but it's really great to see photos for people of the operators, the station antennas, or so on, or screen grabs of their waterfalls and spectrum analysis and that sort of thing. So we got to give them a place to send those. And
Yeah, I think a photograph is worth 1,000 words, or maybe a couple of points at any rate.
Yep. So yeah, I brought that over from the last couple of events. So, and after that, the HamSCIence data processing team will conclude their work tallying the above and publish it on the HamSCIence website. So anyhow, so that's our rough start for the rules. I'll look forward to getting some more input, and I'm going to put these on the website. Because nowadays, if it's not on the website, it doesn't count almost anymore, right? So
Yeah, one thing that strikes me is that it's just in the conversation is that unlike the SCQP, this is really a global event for HamSCIence. I mean, this is really a good first effort in terms of really creating a global event, around it. So I mean, obviously the outreach is going to be a little bit better. Obviously just beyond North America, which and RSGB, which we used before, but I think we should probably emphasize that is that, obviously we're interested in, amateurs regardless of where you are, to be able to participate in this.
I was looking at I'm an RSGB member too. I was looking at the last 3 years of all the different articles and everything. In almost every each year there are a number of articles or references to MSK 144 and what they're talking about, usually under the VHF column, they talk about it. But we've had Canadians involved on Ping Jockey with what we've been doing already. And I double checked with them about Canada's rules are actually more lenient on digital than the US. We just kind of caught up with Canada as far as being able to do MSK on 10 meters. So they say, yeah, no problem, because I did ask that question. Mexico is a question because what's going to happen is Mexico and probably Cuba are going to enter into what's going on when we're doing our contests. So Canada, the US, Mexico, Cuba, probably some islands that maybe have some other nationalities as well. Could easily enter into it.
Question.
Sure, Bob.
What's the legality of other bands besides 10 meters? I'm thinking of lower bands.
Yeah, I don't think there's a legality issue since the FCC removed the data rate limit a year or two ago and replaced it with a 2 kilohertz bandwidth limit. So
Yeah.
I don't think that's an issue.
Okay. Because meteor scatter is possible on lower bands when the MUF is down. So you can get, I mean, the meteors are up there, but if the MUF's there, it's hard to, you don't need the meteors maybe, but.
Right. Yeah, I think it'll be nice to just concentrate on 6 and 10. If we can get that working, and as the solar cycle wanes, we don't know when that's going to start, right? But when that wanes, I think you had a good point. Maybe we could extend this lower
Well,
in frequency.
I've heard meteor scatter signals on 15 and 17 meters, and it's not uncommon on 12. You just don't know what you're listening to sometimes, but somebody
Well,
who
Yeah.
can
Well, maybe that's a
recognize.
different type of bucket, Gary, just sort of note to file, like, for experimenters, people who are going to play outside the bands and still make a contribution, you know.
So, okay. All right. What else we got going on? So we've got Mackenzie. How about if I share your checklist real briefly? I think I've got that on one of my drives here.
Yeah, please do. I want to see what everyone
Okay.
thinks.
Okay, let me find it here. Oh, wrong one. Sorry, folks. I might have to look around for it real quick. Ed, what's going on with the World Amateur Radio Day? Is that our activity still doing okay for looking
Yeah,
good
yeah,
for
and
April?
ham radio open house for the month of April. Yeah, I mean the league is as actively promoting it now. I took a look this morning. There's about 30 groups already that have agreed to participate, and our rough goal was, sort of 50, 50 stations, 50 states. So it's a pretty good start so far. So
All right, I found it. Yeah, in fact, Darlene and Emma from SciStarter were on the NASA call earlier today. So they actually asked me to speak a couple of minutes and explain what was going on. So to some of the other citizen science teams. So that was kind of a nice thing that they thought enough of us to do that. Okay. Let's see. Zoom. Back to Zoom. Share. Free event checklist. Okay. High controls. Okay. So this is Mackenzie's work here. And we're of course looking for somebody to be a chairperson to kind of run this dog and pony show for the next few months, whatever. But she's been helping out by pulling together a lot of background information and kind of coming up with a checklist to make sure that we've got all of our ducks in the proper row. So Mackenzie, do you want to comment about some of the stuff you find and put up?
Sure. So I kind of went through this, and I kind of referenced other contests, to see how they kind of do it. But I was going back and watching our old YouTube videos, and so what I did is I put together a bunch of comments, and like we were talking about last time, like the different frequencies we should use. And I even added, like, on the first one, a secondary frequency that we could use for testing and backup in case that was needed. But for like a possible 6 meter frequency, I wanted to see what everyone thought about that one, like what we should use.
Yeah, I have some comments in general, Mackenzie, and I'll go ahead and I'll mark this, excuse me, mark this up. Send them
Okay.
to you. I think 28074, that's the FT8 frequency, is a good
Oh.
reference to think of in terms of like traffic analysis, because you can go in and look at any part of the world and see what's been going on FT8. But that we probably we just want to look at it. I don't think it's a backup frequency for us. It's more of a traffic analysis reference, if you will, kind of like
Okay.
a control group using a different mode.
Okay.
So yeah, we've got the rules we've been working on, so I think the rules will cover that pretty well.
Exactly.
What about a 6 meter frequency?
Is there band plans that we should be thinking if we fit in and maybe talk to the league or somebody to?
Yeah, we actually had that on Gary's charts earlier.
Okay,
Yeah,
sorry,
the band
but
plan, yeah, for 6 meters is 50.265, TBD, just up the band from 50.260.
Gary, are you able to edit that document?
They were in front of me here. Yeah,
Yes. Okay. Could you please do that and then send it to me because I'm on my other computer,
that's
so I
fine.
can't pull it up right now.
Okay, I
Thank you so
will
much.
update this section.
Thank you. I'm writing it down
Yeah.
too, so just in case.
I'll mark it up as well and send you guys,
Okay.
send it to you guys.
Hello.
I think also the interesting parts, Mackenzie, are some of your ideas of how to promote this and how to get as many people as possible involved, like sections 2 and 3 and stuff.
Sorry, I was muted. So I think it would be a good idea to just kind of include, like I was saying, a user-friendly guide for people who may not be familiar with like meteor scatter, or just WSJTX and MSK 144. So we can make it as simple as possible to kind of get more participation, because I think that if this is unfamiliar territory for a lot of people, it will make it so that people don't want to participate. And like I was saying, if we make this as simple as possible and provide them with everything that they need, we will get maximum participation. So that's kind of what my thought process was for this section right here. And I also included like a little, maybe we could do like a YouTube video or something. Somebody who's more knowledgeable on the topic and has more experience could maybe make a really short video explaining the MSK 144 configuration and how to submit the logs at the end of the contest. Does everyone think that's a good idea? Or maybe it would be, I don't know, too much work.
Well, yeah, I think it's a really good idea. I mean, just to parallel, I guess, sort of the World Amateur Radio Day is that, the league did a webinar for interested, I was on the club level, I was interested in clubs, but that might be something that we might be able to approach for those who are interested, particularly like putting myself in there, obviously no experience in this, but want to participate. It's just hard to, how do you get involved in sort of like a Q&A in terms of handling those things? So that's something that I think we could probably put on the calendar as we get closer to the event. I also like the idea of perhaps having sort of a PDF primer for that the people who are not familiar with either MSK, or meteor scatter in terms of how to use it and get involved. So
So not as to invent the wheel, is it possible? I mean, there's a lot of ham radio YouTube videos out there already. There
yeah,
may be something that's good and accurate. You got to make
yeah,
sure it's
either
accurate.
either a point or we get permission to use, that type of
Right,
thing.
right.
So, yeah. Mhm.
Now, the log submission will be new and unique to us. I
Yeah.
grant that. But we may be able to find something, just like the K5ND, the site that we've with Bruce or others, maybe it was Rich brought up to us past couple of weeks. So there's some information out there to maybe use. But your idea of a dedicated log submission portal is a good one. I mean, that worked out well for the Solar Eclipse QSO party. So
I add something about logging. As far as the participation in this, the events, the upcoming meteor showers, if you're looking for getting more propagation information, it would be very helpful if you could see what the stations are copying, not only who they're working, because there may be very few contacts made, but they'll be hearing lots of stations from distances of hundreds to maybe 1,200 miles. So what you really, I think, almost need for propagation research is have more of what these stations are receiving, and that is easily derived from the all.txt file. Every single every single decoded line is archived in the all.txt file. That's in a WSJTX file. Usually it's an app data, local. Anyway, it's available through a pull-up menu on the WSJTX file menu. If they could excerpt the period of time of the event and send that to someone, there's lots of data to be derived, even if they don't make any contacts. You'll have more propagation data from that than from just a list of a couple contacts that are made.
Is that
And
different
names
from
count.
That's part of
Well,
what Gary was showing earlier. Gary's file from earlier is basically has all that data pulled out of PSK Reporter.
right, right.
Yeah, but PSK
That-
report doesn't show you all of the micrometeors and meteors that a particular station is receiving. That just tells you a contact was made between point 1 and point 2.
No, it has everything. It has everything that what Gary showed earlier has everything that every station is hearing, and also when they're sending,
They might, hear the
73
call.
messages like a logging.
Bruce, you'll see the call sign of who they're hearing, but you will not see the fact that they may have received that station via dozens of different meteors at different times, lasting different lengths of time. I'm not sure if that's
Well,
whoever the propagation or the guru for
Yeah.
getting data from all this information is, but I would think that they'd want the more data, the better, not just the fact that I received 3 stations, and those 3 are posted on PSK Reporter, as opposed to I received multiple stations, but at different times from different meteors, meteor scatter bursts, multiple bursts, maybe hundreds of bursts. That data may be more valuable to someone analyzing propagation by
hi,
meteors.
Rich. The
Hey,
issue,
Bob,
I
long
think,
time no see.
yeah, but the issue might be, you hear a string of information and you may not get the call sign, so you may not know who it is or where the
No, but on
source is.
MSK, Bob, on MSK 144, every line that you decode will have a station on it. If you don't decode it, you won't see anything, any lines of data on the receive side on the band activity column on WSJTX.
Okay,
That's the left
I,
column.
I'm not familiar with this file thing. That's what
Yeah,
I was.
okay, well,
But
WSJTX, you're
if
familiar
you
with
got
WSJTX?
if you got the source call, then and you could.
Well, but yeah, you'll get the source call, but the left side of the screen will have multiple lines. If you happen to have a long meteor burst, which may
I
last
got
5 or
I
6
got a
seconds.
call. I got a tape.
Yeah,
Okay,
Gary
you
is
might
showing
have
that, right?
multiple decoded
Rich,
lines.
Gary is showing that, right, Rich, hang on a minute. Gary is showing that right now from his 1.6 gig file you downloaded.
Yeah,
You can see KA1W with what, 5 different copies on K0 TPP,
Good, that's what
all
you want.
within the same 15-second interval.
What does that derive from? What
Well,
file is that?
that's out of PSK Reporter, out
right.
of the raw files. I'm sorry, Gary, go ahead.
No, you're right. You're exactly right.
I'm looking at the timestamp. Is that within the same decode
Yeah,
period? You
yeah.
see one decode, or do you see multiple ones? I'm looking for.
That's the
Well,
raw.
we've got 6 seconds here. We've got
Right. Okay. Yeah, I'm
27
looking at.
seconds there. We've got 30 seconds there.
It almost
3
looks like
seconds
one
later,
per, one
so.
per 15-second decode period. See, in the case, when I see bursts, I'll see maybe 5 or 10 well, maybe 5 or 6 or 7 in a row, which indicates it's a long burst. There's no way of knowing by looking at that data how long the bursts are.
Well, there's two in a row there. There's two in a row at 4407 and 4413, right? And then there's two in a row later at 4510 and 4513. They're just not, this is one example that he pulled. He just wasn't seeing in this one example what you're talking about, Rich, but it is there. The data's there. This is the raw data, just like if you were to look at PSK Reporter in an instant, looking at all the contacts, and you see all the information. If you look at PSK Reporter and you put your mouse over some station and all that information that pops up when you do that, the down to the second information, that's all in this raw file.
Okay.
So
that is
that's why
available on
that's why
PSK
it's
Reporter then.
important.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's good then. Then you won't have to have users excerpting all.txt file and sending that, which can be a pain, especially since those all.txt files can be hundreds of megs, if not a gig in size.
Right.
Yeah.
We think all we need is this data plus the log data from the individuals that do the logging. And we'll try to prove that in April when we do a test run.
Right. For now, we're doing the test runs on the weekend, usually Saturday mornings. And we've
Well,
gotten more and more stations now participating.
We'll do a planned test run in April during the Lyrids that has a time frame associated with it, and then we'll collect all the log information. So
Yeah, we'll do something simple, like have people email their logs into us and we'll be able to see what we can do to process them. But we'll have the PSK data too, so in April. So. Okay, it's a few minutes after 5. Is there anything else, burning issues on the rules at the moment? Otherwise, I'm gonna wait for Bruce's comments and merge everything together and start putting some of this stuff on the website. I know Ed had to take off for a dinner date, but he'll help us publicize it too and start getting the word out.
yeah, I'll put all my comments on both of these documents and send them to you, Gary, and Mackenzie, or whoever else is on the
That's
list.
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can tell you, Nathaniel is just thrilled at the progress we're making. I mean, to have an idea bubble up from the community and have so many of you adopt the idea and trying to move it forward. I mean, that's a big part of what HamSCI is all about. Instead of telling people what to do, let people suggest it and kind of own it a little bit. And the nice thing is too is we're looking at testing it, improving it, and keeping moving forward. So. Good thing. All right. Any other comments or questions before we call for the meeting for tonight? Mary Lou, you owe Greg and Mackenzie and Ed and I some information, right, on our next task, right? All right. But we'll be looking for that. We'll be looking for that. All right. Okay, everyone. If that's it, then we'll call it a week. Thanks again, everyone, very much for all your input, and we'll get back together in soon. 73 all.
7-3.
Gary,
7-3.
7-3, everybody.
Gary, hello Gary, how are you?
Hey, well, how are you doing?
Thank you. I won't take much time, okay?
Yeah.
After